If you started a podcast where you're just selling to an audience all the time, it's not going to go as far as if you're delivering a message and adding massive value. When you start off with anything, make sure that you identify the why and make sure that's a strong enough why to keep you going when times get tough. What is the thing that you're trying to do? And what are you overcomplicating it so that because why hasn't it happened yet? This is the podcast in the rough. Raw conversations, real strategies, massive impact. Welcome back to the podcast in the rough. I'm your host, Zebulon Thomas, and this is episode 173. Today, I wanted to talk about and really rip this podcast to give you the best insight and information for entrepreneurship and for anyone who is looking to start a podcast or has been procrastinating on that next level or just venturing out and starting something new and exciting, being creative. I'm involved in a lot of projects throughout the year. And there's a lot of projects that are shared with me that people want me to be involved in or that I hear that others want to start and create and they're so headstrong in doing it. And after they talk about it, it doesn't go anywhere. I've looked at that over the course of my career and seen it happen so many times that I was like, well, what is the thing that causes someone to talk about something so creatively and so excited about it that it doesn't move anywhere? And I think it starts with the fact that a lot of people want to do something, but they don't know where to start. That's number one. And number two, maybe they don't feel like they have the tools or resources to move forward in that direction. And number three, they don't have the knowledge or the people around them to help them get it going. And I think there's a fourth one here. And the fourth one is actually the one that really slows us down, is the imposter syndrome. That they feel like they're not worthy enough, they're not good enough. That what gives them the right to share this information or to create this thing or to be this expert or talk on this subject. And so they get stuck on that. So I want to help you, if you're one of those individuals that are stuck on any one of those four things, become unstuck. I want to start off by sharing with you how I got into podcasting, because I feel like that is something that I could have easily got overwhelmed with and just went the other direction. It was a point in time in my career where I was doing vlogging on YouTube. I was creating videos for my ZT films on YouTube. I was creating commercials for big brands at the time. I was expanding in my local network and my reach, helping small businesses grow. So I was still getting my feet wet in my career, but I was well established and I had a lot of demand. And I had just purchased my first home and we moved. There's a lot of things happening and changing. And I said, I want to do a podcast. Now, a year prior to this, I was toying around with podcasting with my brother. We just didn't have the equipment. And so we had these really crappy microphones. Sometimes we'd use our phone and we tried to set it up and we didn't understand it. And we did like 2 episodes and then editing just seemed so crazy and it seemed overwhelming. I just didn't understand the podcasting world. Fast forward a year later, I heard someone talking about how easy it was to get a podcast started because I was always wondering, like, how do you get this thing going? And that year, I was actually a guest on several podcast shows talking about the glide cam and my career as a videographer, cinematographer, and my business ZT Films. And I would look at their setup with all their mics and the mixers. And then I went beyond that and was like, well, how do you even get a show on Apple Podcasts? Like, how do you do that? And I had no knowledge of that. But someone was talking about this app. And at the time, it was called Anchor. Now it's part of Spotify. And Anchor, I think it was Anchor.fm. You can create a podcast and you just record it from your phone and submit it. And it goes right to Apple Podcast and Spotify once you set it up. And it was all free. And that excited me to go, let me give this a shot. And that's what started this podcast. Now, at the very beginning, if you go way back in my very early episodes, I mean, listen to the first one. It was done on my phone, no microphone, just my phone. Then I advanced by, using a Rode microphone. It was a shotgun mic. I think it was the Video Mic Me. They sent me this microphone and I plugged it into my iPhone and I would use that. And so my audio got a little better. But I didn't have a mixer. I just used the Anchor app. I just used what was there. I didn't have any editing. It was just recorded straight into it. And if I messed up, I messed up. And you can hear this and I would just rip it and throw it up. And the intro You can record that in the app too and just add it to the file. So it was very minimal, but it worked and it was streamlined and it was fast. And I did my first few episodes and I was excited about it because I was reporting to the world. Like it was different than the vlogs and it was obviously different than doing my commercial or my video work. So it gave me something to talk about. I enjoyed it. And then the vlogs faded out because I got really, really busy and I couldn't keep up with the vlogs and I didn't want to show my personal life anymore on YouTube. And so I kind of pulled back from that and I leaned more into podcasting. And when I did that, I started looking at like, how do I make the sound better? So I bought, this foam that went around on the wall that went around where my microphone, my phone would be mounted to, because I mounted it so I could stand and speak. But the quality changes over time. As I got more into it, I was basically just developing my voice, just my voice as a podcaster. I had no other knowledge of like what to do. I wasn't even editing. Like I said, I was just recording this. I was excited about it. Then I would, take the phone with me and do episodes in my car. And I noticed that it sounded better in the car. I was like, oh, because it's like a studio in here. And then I started getting serious about it. Like after I did, I think it was 80 episodes, I was like, I'm going to look at microphones. So I started, looking at these microphones and I started learning and researching and that was exciting. I had fun doing that. And I bought a bunch of different microphones. I tested them out. And I always knew I wanted a Rodecaster Pro. And I always knew I wanted the Joe Rogan microphones, I call it, I just felt like they were out of my reach, out of my budget at the time because I wasn't investing in my podcast. I was investing my time, but I wasn't investing my finances to increase this and upgrade it because I just felt like it wasn't ready yet. But I was speaking, delivering my message through my podcast in hopes that people would hear it. And finally, people started to listen and I started to get feedback from it. And that's when I was like, all right, I want to build a community here. How do you do that? While this is happening, my career is taking a shift. The world is taking a shift because I started my podcast, I believe it was fall, like October of 2019. And then, we go into a pandemic. Now everyone's listening to podcasts. And I thought, well, this is a great time to get a different message out. So I start, talking more on like, self-help and personal development. And I start sharing a little bit of my background as a life coach. And I start sharing some audio programs on my podcast for free to kind of help people get through that. And then I was, sharing the behind the scenes of like what I was doing with my films. And I started talking about, live streaming and things like that. And then my career shifted. A lot of my clients got wiped out locally. And my brand stopped moving forward because they were, because of the pandemic. But then I got picked up by entrepreneurs. I got called upon to, help certain entrepreneurs. I've talked about this in previous episodes. Certain entrepreneurs called upon me to be a part of their business and wear a hat that I never knew or rock a title, if you will, that I never knew I had. But I realized that definitely defines me because someone out there in the world was like, we're going to create this title, this job description, and this is what you need to look for. And I fit that. So here I am as creative strategist and head of productions for these entrepreneurs and these companies. And I started advising them through the pandemic. If you listen to my podcast, at some point I couldn't share anymore, but I did share as much as I could, but I couldn't share anymore because I was, obviously under NDAs and things like that. But then I had all this extra money that I could invest in my podcast. And so I started to take some of that money and go, maybe I can't afford a $300 microphone. Maybe I can't afford the Rodecaster Pro. And I got it. And I didn't know how to use it. But again, it was, I was evolving and I was learning and I was growing slowly. And so I got this Rodecaster and I hooked it up. That's the thing. I didn't let it sit. I've seen people buy this equipment and let it sit in their house or their office somewhere for a long time, collect dust, because they just initially got it and they feel like, well, that's good enough. No, you got to move forward. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know that you got to take baby steps as you go. You can't think of like all of it and how it's going to be like the best of the best or how to improve the audio quality. Sometimes you just got to pick up the phone and start recording. Like this episode today, I had all these other things planned and I had a whole agenda written out. And I said, no, I just want to rip a podcast because I'm also producing other podcasts for friends of mine and other companies. And so I have a very busy day today, but I was like, I got to get mine in. And I felt so inspired to talk about this because it's raw and it's real and it's strictly, straight from me. It's not planned out, but it's going to give you the insight you need to get you unstuck. And so, whether you're buying a Rodecaster Pro and a high-end microphone, and you can start off the rip right there with the quality. But then when you get all this stuff and it comes to your house or your office and you sit down with it, plug it in, just hit the big fat record button, put the mics together, and say something and just hear how you sound. Don't worry about the settings. We can dial that in. We can go on YouTube and look it up, or you can jump into my Podcast Success Secrets Mastermind group by heading over to thepodcastintherough.com/learn, right? See, there's a selfless plug, and just getting more tools to help you grow, or binge listen to all these episodes. Find the ones that really help you that I talk about how to podcast from start to success. It's about turning your mess into your message, right? That's what they say. And overcoming that imposter syndrome. Just talk. I always tell people, especially with video marketing, like I create these ad ideas, and sometimes the companies go, oh, if they hear it first, they go, oh man, that seems so crazy. And I'm like, let's shoot it and see how it looks. Sometimes I have to encourage the client to take a risk. And the only way to do that is for me to put in the work and show them what it looks like. And 99.9% of the time, when I deliver a commercial ad that we wanted to risk, they see it and it looks so good to them and they love it. And they go, oh, and all those fears that they thought was going to be weren't there, and they were very small. And I bring that up because you might think your podcast, oh, if I say something or if I do this, what are they going to think of me? Sometimes you got to record it and then listen to it. And you go, oh, that's actually not so bad. I didn't actually say the thing I was going to say, or say the thing I was afraid to say, or I did say the thing that I was afraid to say, but I delivered it in a way that everyone can relate to, and it makes me feel good talking about it, and I feel good listening to it. Don't get stuck. Always move forward. If you're ready to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast like a pro, I've got something just for you. The ultimate guide to setting up and growing your podcast. This is the step-by-step blueprint you need to build a successful podcast. From setting up your studio to attracting listeners and making money. And here's how you can get it. Join the Podcast Success Secrets Mastermind. Visit thepodcastintherough.com/learn or head over to buymeacoffee.com/intherough and grab it in the extra section. Don't wait. Grab your copy now and start growing your podcast today. Statistically, after 20 episodes, you fall off. You stop doing it. Most of the people that start podcasts, and I think it's because they don't have a strong enough vision. They don't have a strong enough why. Like, why are you doing podcasting? Like, if you're just doing it to get views and to make money, like, that's not a strong enough why. That's going to burn you out when you notice it doesn't happen right away. But if your message is to build a catalog of information that you're maybe reporting on or covering or sharing, that you can look back on and become something amazing. You have all these audio and video files of you creating the thing that educates people or shares a story or documents something. Now you have a catalog of something that represents a part of your life, a chapter, or who you are, what you represent, or your knowledge that you want to share. You could take that and turn that into anything later, especially if it doesn't become something big in the podcast world. But it will. It will. If you stay consistent, it will. That's just it. I can't tell you how long it takes. It just takes consistency. It just takes you constantly pivoting and refining and making sure that your message is still consistent with everything you're doing and what you're about. And you're speaking to your audience. If you started a podcast where you're just selling to an audience all the time, it's not going to go as far as if you're delivering a message and adding massive value, okay? When you start off with anything, make sure that you identify the why and make sure that's a strong enough why to keep you going when times get tough or when you get too busy and you lose track of the why. Like, there's several times where I'm like, podcasting is overwhelming to me. Well, why? Oh, because maybe I drifted off of my message and I started talking about some stuff that I'm not really into. It's not that I don't know about it, it doesn't excite me. And if it doesn't excite me, it's not going to excite my audience. I can promise you that, because it's not going to be there. You're not going to hear it in my voice. So I want to speak truth to what I'm about and also give people that value that they need. For me, talking about podcasting is way, way more exciting for me than talking about personal development. Yes, I wrote a book about personal development. I used to be a life coach. And now I focus more on success coaching, but that's still kind of in the back burner. Occasionally when I find an entrepreneur, and I usually find these entrepreneurs through doing productions and podcasting, and they go, oh, this is amazing. And then I find out what they really want, and they want to reach another level as a personal entrepreneur. Then we shift into this success coaching. So I have outlets. But to talk about that doesn't sound exciting to me. A lot of us are jumping on here and we're failing forward, and that's fine. So I figured for those of you who've already made the leap, you've already maybe invested your time or money and you have a podcast and you're after your 20th episode, and you're starting to get a little rough or fall off or lost, or maybe you're doing really good and you're so excited and you're leaning into it, then you find me and you go, let's see what this guy's all about. And I talk about all the cool things about podcasting and all the little things that I've figured out that help me be creative, and all the things I've earned, learned, and developed by working with these bigger companies, brands, and entrepreneurs and helping them grow their podcast. Of course, my podcast is nowhere near as big as the ones I've helped. It doesn't mean it won't someday. I want to point that out too, because I've built podcasts, produced them, and worked on and in the background of so many different episodes, from the starting phase to some of them that were midway through and I've helped them get to another level, and some that were already at the top. I've worked on those podcasts and helped them turn huge followings, major profits, and expand their reach tremendously. And you would think that it's just going to be automatic for my own personal podcast. Okay, I learned all these tools. I developed tools and got to test them in real time in the real world, and found what didn't work and what did work by dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into these strategies and ideas. And because of that, I was able to fast forward and really learn real quick what did and what didn't work on a podcast. How did you connect to the listeners? How did you market that podcast to reach more people? How did you build a community from that podcast? How did you shift the community over into a mastermind group? How did you grow that mastermind group? How did you tie the mastermind group, the entrepreneur's lifestyle, the business, and the branding into the podcast seamlessly and just have everyone ranting and raving, right? How did you take something from 0 to 1 million on YouTube? How do you take someone from $0 to, I'm not going to make a financial claim here, but really good money that can fund a team, a company? And you think taking that, all that I've learned, and I'm like, all right, my podcast is just going to be super successful. I'm going to walk away from all that and I'm going to just apply all that to my own. It doesn't really work that way. There's so many factors that play a role in that success. Some had the teams, some had the money to invest and keep investing, even though when they failed, they did it again and it was bought their ticket to success. And then there's some that had tremendous community, already had the community laid out, years of networking and dedication to a community, right? Some of these individuals are very heavily involved in their churches, heavily involved in their communities, heavily involved in their industry. And when they turn the switch on the podcast and they say, hey, I'm doing something exciting, you guys want to be a part of this? And then those people subscribe and then they talk about it and they share it. And that is huge reach, fast growth. Some already had the engine running, as I say. Some were entrepreneurs that already found major success in this one topic or niche or this industry. And so they were able to just turn on the switch of podcasting, and here we are, we're talking about it, and everyone just floods in. But if you don't have the engine running and you haven't put the years in to become a mobile in your industry and known, where is it that you're starting at? Maybe you have 5 friends, right? Maybe you have 3,000 friends on Facebook. But when you do a post, only 12 see it. Well, there's your 12. So now you have 12 subscribers that will listen to the podcast. If you have one person listening to your podcast episodes, just one, that's all that matters. Someone's hearing it, and allows you to test and develop your skills as a podcaster. So you have to think about, what's the why? Why am I doing this? And then, what is your reach? Where are you going to go with this? How are you going to get this podcast out there? You could play the rat race game of social media, and I highly recommend just at least getting it out there and staying consistent is the biggest thing. Maybe you can pump out a bunch of content, but you have free tools and software and apps out there like Headliner and Audacity and all different resources that you can use to create micro content and put it out there, right, on your social media platforms. And then it just comes down to staying consistent, like making sure you stick to a schedule, stick to an agenda. Are you doing it daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? How many episodes are you going to deliver? What are you going to talk about? Ease into this. You don't have to start out knocking it out. And also, I tried this too. I'm going to be you know what? I'm going to record a whole year worth of shows. You calculate it out. You literally go, okay, if I did one a month, that's 12 episodes. But if I did one a week, right, that's X amount of episodes. But when you do that and you sit there and you spend a month, right, recording everything you need, and then another 4 months, okay, because that's a lot of content, and maybe you're slow at it and you just edit it, or maybe you don't edit it, you just record it and throw it out there. You lose traction within yourself, within your own team, if you will, because you're wearing all the hats. You lose traction because it's not, you put it on autopilot. You put it on autopilot, you put it out there and it's scheduled and it goes out, and then you don't think about it. And this, I've done this before. And then you just distance yourself from your own podcast, even though everyone else there's an episode coming out every week. Maybe you're out there just talking about it. Who wants to do that? To me, I find that it's best when I'm doing it weekly, right? And for you, it might be monthly. Maybe you gear up for it once a month and deliver a solid podcast episode. So I dedicate every week. I dedicate about 30 to 40 minutes to record my episode. And then I dedicate about 2 hours. I make sure I get it editing done in 2 hours, within 2 hours. And then within that 2 hours, I also have probably 10, 20 minutes of upload, getting it on the platform. And I schedule it. But this way I talk about it in real time. This stuff happened this week. I want to share. I want to talk about it in the podcast. And then, next week while I'm getting ready for that episode, I'm talking and spreading the word about last week's episode. Hey, I just did an episode. You got to check it out. Oh, this week coming up though. So I'm right in the middle of the podcast, right in the middle of the episode. I'm involved in it. I'm sharing everything that I'm doing in real time. And to me, that's exciting. That's engaging. Having a rough day, I might get on the podcast, talk about it. I have an experience that it's exciting or game-changing. I want to talk about it. I have a new strategy or something I created that I want to share that worked. I want to talk about it. So create your podcast in a way that allows you to talk about it as much as possible and not stress it and have fun. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Yes, I've obsessed over the sound of my voice and the audio and what EQs and how to tweak this and refine it. And then I jump in the car and I play it and I listen to it in the car and then I listen on the phone. I listen on the TV and on the computer. I'm like, it's like, well, who cares? Like, just get it out there. But that's me because I'm like, I want to fine tune. I got bored, right? So I'm like, when you get bored, you got this podcast, you got everything figured out. When you get this way, you have everything figured out. All your buttons are in place. Everything's just perfect. And then you're going to be like, you're going to dissect your own podcast. You're going to be like, well, what if we threw a different intro? Let's change the intro that I spent, weeks on, and we just finished it. It's only been running for 4 episodes, but let's change it again, right? Like, and if you have a team, now your team's going to be frustrated because they want to change it again. Trust me, I've been there, right? Yeah, we got to change the episode again. Listen, create maybe 3 or 4 different variations of your intro and outro, right? So you can rotate it. And I say that not because you just want to be creative, keep changing it, but I say that just to keep you fresh and also, keep branding consistent, but also not too far off where it's repetitive, okay? So some things to think about. And so when you get bored with anything, you're going to obsess over how to take it to another level. And sometimes that's just you mastering a new skill. And then you're like, okay, how do I get to the next level? So there's either boredom where you've done it and you're like, okay, I want to do something different, being creative. And then there's something where you've done it, it sounds really, really good. And now you have to learn a new skill to master the next level. And so to begin that mastery, you have to evaluate where you're at and then go, what can we do with the data? What can we do with what we've got the feedback from? And what can we do with what I really want this podcast to develop or evolve into? Where's the shift need to be made? And also, when you start to grow this podcast, yes, you're going to be able to grow it. And yes, at some point you'll make money, but you got to learn how to plug things into it to have that work. Right off the bat, are you going to be able to monetize? Probably not. Right off the bat, are you going to get a whole bunch of sponsors that are going to knock down your door to say, I want to spend all this money to have a plug in your podcast episode to your 5 followers, your 5 listeners? Probably not. But you can find ways to plug into it. Like maybe it's using it to sell something on the side that you do. Maybe you have a side hustle. Maybe you do coaching. Maybe you're a real estate agent. You can talk about this and be like, oh, by the way, I'm this. And then locals hear that and they go, oh, real estate agent. I'm going to sell or buy a house, or I want to learn about this, or, you could find a way to plug it in. That gives you the opportunity to monetize your reach, monetize your podcast. And then you can grow. You could reach out local and be like, hey, to the local diner down the street, I'm doing a podcast. I focus on local. Would you like to start here? And maybe they don't have funding. Some might give you, $100 a month. You can get an ad on there. I'll plug you and start, and, give them that good discount at the very beginning. Because as you grow, because listen, you're going to grow, and then their ad is always on that episode. So, and if they stay with you, maybe they get that lock-in rate. So now you have 1,000, right, followers and listeners, and they're getting that for 100 now. It's a benefit to them because it's 1,000 local, and they're always hearing about the sub shop or the local diner, or, hey, give me some free subs, right? Like, how do you want to barter, right? So think about that after. Remember what I said here. Think about all that after you've actually recorded at least 20 episodes. Hear how your voice sounds. And then after 100, like the first 100 episodes, I always say the first 100 episodes, that's for you. After you get past 200 episodes, now you're starting to get some traction. because now you're starting to get real followers that are outside your circle of influence. They're outside of your network. And if you're doing your podcast right by the 200th episode and beyond, then you'll be able to have that engagement and hold retention, and people are going to talk about you and they're going to want to subscribe. Listen, I have not even gotten to my 200th episode, even though I'm episode 173 right now. Technically, in my dashboard, I think I'm like 185 episodes, right? Because there's a few I deleted, some I started and didn't like. Right? So I'm still learning. And again, all of the stuff, all the knowledge I have for all those entrepreneurs, made them successful in all types of ways. Applying it to myself doesn't always work because I'm still under 200 episodes. But the stuff that I'm producing, the library of episodes that I have, I'm very proud of, because whether this podcast grows tremendously and I hit huge success with it, like everyone I've helped, and I'm able to do that for myself, or if it doesn't, I at least have a catalog of audio and video library of content that I'm proud of, that walks you through a process, that teaches you how to podcast. This way, when I'm out in public and someone says, I want to start a podcast, where do I begin? I can go, oh, check out episode 131 or check out episode 119 or, like of my podcast. I can, instead of referring them to, oh, so-and-so on YouTube has this great information. Like, I don't do that anymore. I used to. I'd be like, because I didn't have the information. Like, go to this dude, like check them out or check her out. She's got great information. Like, if anything, I tell people, start here. And then, oh, what are you trying to sound like more? Oh, I can then recommend you, hey, there's this lady I know that does podcasting and she talks about podcasting. Listen to her style, listen to how she delivers, listen to how she talks to her community and her co-hosts. Like, I would recommend that. I think about some of the podcast episodes that people create and I don't feel that they're proud of it. Like, even my friends who deliver local news, they're creating podcast episodes and interviewing people. They're having an experience. They're developing episodes that have, really profound knowledge. Some are just, breaking in to like, who are the new people in town. Some are interviewing, legends of the town, if you will, like the founding members of our city. And I feel that when they look back at those episodes, they all are tied to memories, experiences, learning, and a lot of just good moments, right? Or a lot of challenging moments or a lot of, learning curve moments, but they're proud of it. And, and then I look at other podcasters that are chasing the money and the views, and they're reporting about stuff that a lot of people are already talking about, and they're not doing anything different. They're just kind of being a copy, and they're so burnt out. And when they're done, they wasted all this time and they don't have anything to look back on to say they're proud of, because it's all copy. It's not original. There's no flair to it. There's no customization. There's no creativeness to it. Don't fall into that trap. So be creative and make sure you start. That's the biggest thing. Make sure you start. I want you to think about this. How does podcasting make you feel? And how does podcasting make your listeners feel? How do you want them to feel? And then are you going to sit there and dread that you have all this equipment that you invested in and it's overcomplicating? Too many mics. Too many camera angles, right? Like, now we got a switcher, we got to change all this. Like, you're wearing all the hats. Simplify it. Or decide, is this something commercial or is this something creative? Kind of like what I just explained. Are you podcasting to sound professional and have professional setup? Or are you just going to use what you have to be streamlined, have fun, and be creative? Because I'm still not doing video podcasts for myself. I want to. And I'm looking at my webcam, I'm looking at my professional cameras. And I have a ATM Mini. The Blackmagic ATM Mini right here, all set up, ready to go, plugged into the board. I could just power these cameras on and this and hit 1, 2, 3, 4 and do switching, turn on the computer, use a software like OBS. Oh boy, now listen, we're getting complicated, aren't we? There's a lot of hats there. There's a lot of different roles. But I haven't made the shift yet because I don't want to overcomplicate podcasting just yet. I want it to be natural. And I'm going to force myself to make the shift to just try it. So dialing it back, when you're doing your podcast and you're starting out, think about, are you going to do video? You can do audio. It's okay to just do audio, right? Are you going to do them both? Try it. Use your phone. Who cares? Who's your guest going to be? What's your show going to be about? What's the why? How do you want people to feel about it? How are you going to feel about it? And listen, if you're not doing podcasting, which I think you should, consider it. What is the thing that you're trying to do? And what are you overcomplicating it because why hasn't it happened yet? I guess that's the question. Like, what did you talk about last week or last month or last year? What's the goal? And why have you not moved forward? Now, I know some of you are like, no, I already did. Okay, good. I'm talking to the ones right now that have not. Why have you not started writing the book? Why have you not started working on the documentary? Have you written anything? Have you put anything together? Why have you not started documenting your weight loss journey? What are you afraid of? Why have you not started that new business, right? Why have you not built the team? Why have you not found the right people to help you stay motivated? Why have you not taken the right steps to move in the direction you want to go? Why have you not started writing down the life that you want to design, right? The life that you want to design to live. Why is everything so complicated? Why are you stressed out all the time? Why are you stuck? There's several ways to get unstuck. There's one way that will ultimately work and get you unstuck right now, and that is taking action, movement, moving in the direction you want to go, reading the book, moving forward, getting off the couch, action, okay? Just like in my films, we say action, the scene unfolds. We say action, the cameras roll, the sound is on, the people start to move, the scene comes to life, action. So many of us, I feel, are saying cut, right? Like, I get home from work, cut. I'm done. I'm busy, cut. I want to do podcasting, cut. I talked about it, okay? Don't cut, action, okay? Something to think about. That could be a podcast right there. Don't cut, action, right? The action podcast. So listen, right now I just went on for 40 some minutes and I'm going to have a little bit of editing here to do on this episode. But now I'm going to go and record the voiceover work that I got to do for all these other podcasts and these promo plugs. And I'm excited for that. And I'm just warming my voice up. I love getting creative with this. And this is what I like to do. I want you to find that for yourself. And if you want to stay with me, subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you tune in for next week. Binge listen to some of those past episodes. And if you want to take it to another level, jump into my podcast Success Secrets Mastermind group. Go to thepodcastingrough.com/learn and check it out. It'll take you to another level. I'd love to have you a part of that community, and we're gonna grind. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next week. Take care.